So we're in the offices now of the Honorable Alhaji Boniface Siddiq. He's the Minister for Zongo and Inner City Development. He's also Member of Parliament for Medina. We're here to talk about the Zongos and his ministry's work so far, their plans, especially since the board of the Zongo Development Fund has been inaugurated just a few days ago. Honorable Alhaji Boniface Siddiq, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. So now you have a board as a ministry, well, as a Zongo Development Fund, which is superintended over by your ministry. What does that mean for your activities so far?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for calling on me this afternoon. Before elections, or during the campaign, His Excellency the President, Nanado made a promise to the country and the people of the Zongo communities and the inner cities, and assured them that, especially with the Zongo communities, that when he comes, he voted into power, he was going to establish a fund to address the infrastructural deficits, sanitation, social services deficits, and a whole lot of problems or challenges within the Zongo communities. And this can only be done when you have the resources. Fortunately, I believe it touched the hearts of the people. And so the voting pattern changed within the Zongo communities. Fortunately, our party was given the tests. We were given the nod. And so, as a promise, His Excellency decided to fulfill his promise based on the manifesto promises. And so establish the whole ministry to take charge of that. And under the ministry was established the Zongo Development Fund. This is like Get Fund or National Health Insurance you have, that is under the Ministry of Health, or Get Fund under the Ministry of Education. Now, they have their mandates and responsibilities and rules as to how to mobilize funds, apart from what government will be given or what Parliament will approve. They have other sources of mobilizing funds to be able to address the needs of the people. So far, the ministry has carried out what we call the needs, the baseline assessment. We are in the process of engaging a consultant to carry out needs assessment of each Zongo community, so that we put it together, document it, and that document could be a shopping document. Wherever you go in, you can put it before any investor or any person or institution that is ready to support you to be able to address those challenges. So the chief executive and 2 deputies have already been appointed to manage the secretariats. We are in the process of also coming up with the supporting staff for the secretariat. And so you realize that most of the challenges that is being addressed, ranging from infrastructure and sanitation enhancement, we're looking at social development and economic empowerment. We're also talking of cultural promotion and historic heritage preservation, and also talking of security and crime control. All these things will be supported partially by the Zongo Development Fund. So you realize that under infrastructure, we're talking of drains, we're talking of roads, we're talking of schools, we're talking of clinics, we're talking of libraries. When you go to the Zongo communities, they lack all these amenities I'm talking about. You enter Zongos, you don't have any good roads, you don't have good drains, so you have stagnant water all the places, and so they are very common, the things that are very common within these communities are poverty, diseases, illiteracy, unemployment. And if you sum all these things together, culminates into frustration. And frustration ends up getting the youth into drug abuse and other activities, which doesn't augur well for the society. So it is so important that these issues are easily addressed. And we are talking of sanitation. Environment is so poor. We need very clean environment. And so you see that we have a lot of problems within the Zongo communities. If you come in terms of social development, in terms of child education or girl child education, adult education, regenerative health, all these things are things of worry to the president. And when you come to economic empowerment, if you trace the history and the roots of Zongo, traditionally or culturally, they are people who are known to be in trade or merchandise. They are merchants, they are traders. But unfortunately, with time and civilization, they have been relegated to the background. There's no way they can get support.
Okay.
The president thinks that there's a way to transform them. So the feeling of the president is how best he can transform these communities into a more resilient, safe, and good communities to live in.
So in achieving all of these goals of the fund, you mentioned that a baseline assessment has been done. What exactly has been carried out in terms of baseline assessment?
Baseline assessment is just like a random sampling. We choose about 5 regions for the officers to go straight to the Zongo communities and then have one-on-one interaction with the people. They meet the chiefs, they meet the malams, they meet the youth, and then they have first hindsight idea of what is on the ground. Because you go to some communities, they'll tell you they have no water, they have no schools, they have no makaranta, they have no drains, no libraries, no clinics. So they look at all these things and document them and then bring it to us. We sum all together and see which ones are the most common.
Okay.
That cuts across all the communities. At the end of the day, based on this, we'll be able to come out with the terms of reference for whichever consultant that will be engaging. And this will be carried across the whole country because we want to know the number of Zongos in the country, their locations, what are the peculiar problems within these Zongos.
So you're gathering data, basically. What will be the work that the consultant will be required to do?
The consultant, in the first place, I've already given you some of the work that he will be doing. First of all, to be able to identify the Zongo. For example, let's see, Eastern region. He should be able to tell me the number of Zongos in Eastern region, the population in each Zongo community. You see, so I'll be able to tell you that if I go to Samankesi Zongo, I should be able to tell you that this Zongo community has a population of about 3,000, 5,000, or 6,000. Okay, so based on the population, I should be able to tell you that these things, they need maybe toilets, this capacity, 10-seater capacity, 12-seater capacity, the number, maybe 3, 4 to take care of them. And also to be able to assess and know how many homes have toilets. So that you encourage, even though you are establishing a public one, you now come up to encourage households to also establish toilets in their homes. Number of children in that community, how many of them are in schools, how many of them are in Arabic schools. You should be able to come up with them. What kind of trades are in those communities? What kind of jobs are they doing?
At what point? Right.
And based on that, you'll be able to come up with various skills training that you'll be given to the people within the community.
So at what point are we going to get this information?
As soon as possible, because I've not been brought here to sit behind the table. If you check and you follow my activities, you see that almost all the time I'm on the field.
When exactly do you mean by as soon as possible?
As soon as possible. Right now, the board has been has come in place. The board has been sworn in just 2 days ago. They are supposed to start work. The executives for the Zongo Development Fund Secretariat have been appointed. The supporting staff will soon be appointed. And definitely work has to start.
So work has not started yet?
I have started from my ministry.
What has been done?
If you follow my activities, there are other activities I'm doing for various communities. So far, we have engaged 3,000 Arabic instructors in this country. It's one of those things in our mandates. 2, I've started with some places rehabilitating some schools. Because you go to Zongo communities today, I'll say without doubt, you can't find any good school in the Zongo communities compared to seemingly elite schools, so elite communities. So some of the schools that are so dilapidated, we are rehabilitating them to modern status. Some we need to collapse them and help build new schools so that they also feel some comfort within them that now their standards have been raised to a certain level. So it's so important that we do this. Apart from that, we're also establishing some football parks, either AstroTurf or green parks. This is to tell you why, because we go to a community, their major interests.
It's football.
You get to know their major interest might be football, basketball, or volleyball. You need to give them the opportunity. And because you check the history of Zongo in terms of football, with respect to football, Zongo people, their prime so high. They are rated so high as far as football is concerned in this country. And I always say it without doubt. We have had 3 best African footballers in this country. All the 3 best African footballers come from Zongo communities. Ibrahim Sande in 1972, Golden Boy Abdurazak in 1978, Abedi Pele 1982. Since 82, we've not had any best African football. And all the names, maybe some of the names I've been mentioning, have lived up to expectation. If you come to Accra, you have people like Mohamed Polo, Abu Moro, Bashir Gambo, Mama Akwa, Anas Seidu. You have a lot of them. When you go to Medina, anytime they invite players to Black Stars, you have not less than 5 people.
So how many of these parks have been constructed?
So far, we have not less than 10, because I know AstroTurf we only have 3. But the green parks are ongoing. You have a place like Salaga, Bolga, Yeji, you have Walwale, you have Chebi, you have Medina. They are all ongoing. And very soon, they'll start commissioning them.
And these schools that are being rehabilitated, how many?
So far, we have about 2 or 3 that we have started, and we have identified about 51 projects in 41 communities. We've sent, we are asking for commencement warrant from Ministry of Finance. Monies have been made available, but you cannot commence when you don't have the certificates. This is where we have to engage the contractors. So within the next few weeks, I hope maybe 2 weeks, a contractor should move to site and works will begin. We are in various activities in terms of sanitation. We are looking at water, small town integrated water systems, boreholes. We are doing them. We are doing schools. We are doing drains. So we spread our portfolio. So the next time you are coming, maybe I will be with you on the field to check some of the projects.
So how many projects would you say are currently ongoing that next time we can go and check?
Not less than, so far about 10 are off. They are on course. Some are about 85, 75% complete.
And these include the schools?
This includes schools, parks, water systems. All these things are on course.
Right.
So I believe the next time we are meeting, maybe by the end of next month, I'm sure some of the projects will be ready for commission.
And how much has gone into these projects?
Well, so far we're talking about somewhere 10 million Ghana cedis.
10 million Ghana cedis. Okay.
Spread it. Because some projects will be about 300,000, 400,000 Ghana cedis. We don't do billions of cedis or millions of, no. It's something manageable, something that will be seen very fast.
So small to medium scale, basically. So I'm counting here, 3 schools, 10 parks. You mentioned...
carrying out Operation Clean Zongo.
Yes.
Sanitation is also part of it.
Yeah, you mentioned 51 projects, which will begin in 41 communities when you get the clearance. Some would say that after over a year in existence as a ministry, this number would be small.
First of all, if you know what it takes to establish a ministry, then I think this ministry or the government should be commended. Sometimes you establish a ministry, it will take you more than 2 years before it stands on its feet. But sometimes a whole 4 years and the ministry has not found its feet. But since we started, first of all, the most important thing is to conscientize the people. I went around the whole country, the 10 regions, conscientizing the people, the essence of establishing this ministry. I've been able to come up with the Zongo Development Act to get it to Parliament. If you were following, it went to Parliament, I had to withdraw.
It was withdrawn and then I had to go back.
And that was not easy. Finally got it enacted, passed, and the president signed it into an act.
Yeah, but that was a Zongo Development Fund, and you mentioned that your ministry has already been working even before, because the fund itself has not begun.
It's a process, because the fund had not begun.
But yeah, so I'm asking now about an assessment of your work in the ministry.
This is what is going on. First of all, I've engaged people in the ministry, and everybody's working, okay? But you should remember, the whole of 2017, check the record, this ministry was under the presidency, and I had only 580,000 Ghana cedis to operate for a whole year, not for 1 month, a whole year. So you can see what I was going through. I had no logistics, but thank God, now things are normalizing. Now the ministry has its own budget. You operate on your own. First, you are an infant. If you do economics, we have what we call infant industry. You are being supported. But as you grow, you are now gradually being weaned out. You wean yourself out, and then you stand on your feet, and you'll be able to operate. I have been able to sustain myself for 1 year, doing all this work, moving from one sector to the other, and also identifying major problems, challenges, how to solve them. Went around the 10 regions. I've been able to succeed in identifying projects that will begin, because this project that we have begun is just more or less like a pilot. Because in the first place, 3,000 Arabic teachers, if you want to speak, is not enough. But you don't have to start in a fully blown manner. You will fail, you will crash. If you start right from a modest level with 3,000, you can graduate upwards. This is what we
right.
2, even in employing the Arabic instructors, don't be surprised if I tell you that I didn't engage them from this ministry. I had to engage the services of an agency that has the capacity to do it, and that is Youth and Employment Agency and the Ministry of Employment. So I paid them to ensure that these people are really engaged. There will be efficiency. Based on that, there will be better monitoring.
Okay.
So you know that the people are on site. So all these things, I introduce youth employment, so I know what I'm talking about.
If I'm to understand what you've been telling us, the majority of the time that you have had in the past year has been spent establishing your ministry and touring the country.
Yeah.
Why not more? Why couldn't more be done?
Don't forget that I'm a human being. I have things to do in the office. I have others to do on the field. When I go on the field, I have to come back and put my my report together and put it well and do proper assessment, sit down with my officers and do proper analysis and see what we have done. Is it good? How do we improve upon it if we engage another region? This is what you do to get a very good report, so that at the end of the day, if I'm going anywhere, I have a document that I can present for support.
Well, see, Honorable, even at this stage, we do not have a clear picture from the conversation we are having. We do not have a clear picture of what exactly we want to do. Because what exactly we want to do.
You were not following me when I was giving you.
Well, you mentioned, Honorable, I was following very clearly. You mentioned, Honorable, that we are going to have a consultant to do a needs assessment to know exactly what is going to be done across the country.
First of all, that means you are not following. I've already given you the areas. I understand my job very well, and I've given you 4 thematic areas: infrastructure and sanitation enhancement. 2, social development, economic empowerment.
The general areas are there.
I'm working on it. Let me tell you, right now we are engaging in Accra alone. We are on a pilot engaging almost about 500 women, attaching them to a bank. We are giving them training and giving them loans so that we monitor this. If it's successful, we replicate it to other Zongos across the country. I am not the type that because I've been appointed a minister, follow my track record. I don't want to leave some bad footprints one day for somebody to come and say, this man was the first in history to become the Minister of Inner City and Zongo Development, but didn't do well. I make sure that everything I do it systematically and do it well.
But so within this thematic...
You don't say because you are a ministry, just go in for money. Where's the money? You are operating under a budget. That's the most important thing you should know. And I have already told you that I have because if you are given a budget, it doesn't mean that you have free hands to just go spend. I have to submit projects to the Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance is giving me 17 million for the first quarter. And within the first quarter, we are doing 51 projects within a resources of about 30 million. So it's so commendable if you come to see it. And once the commencement certificate is now released, jobs will begin. Beyond that, we have already started more than 10 projects in this country, and everybody is seeing it. So I don't see what is...
How do we reconcile this with the work that the consultant is now about to begin to do a needs assessment to make sure that we know what we are going to do exactly on the ground, as you have told us?
It's not the job of the consultant that will guide me to do my job. But what you should know is that if I tell you we have 365 Zongos in this country, it's not static, because society is dynamic. You keep increasing the number based on settlements. I did the research in 2008. We had 365. Now, if you check, a good researcher will tell you in statistics, between 2008 to date is 10 years. You have to take a margin of error. That margin of error, at least a maximum of 5%, you should be talking close to 1,000 communities now, because new settlements are emerging. So you see, your job or your study that you do today is not going to be permanent and static. Somebody will come and review it and tell you that what you did was correct, but it has gone beyond that. So if I'm engaging a consultant to do needs assessment, I'm telling him to go around and tell me what is. That doesn't mean that I will not work whilst he's doing his consultancy.
On what basis are we working now?
Yes, because I've gone around the country. There are some communities, when you go, they will tell you what they need immediately. Because you go to a community, they don't have a school, they don't have lights, they don't have roads, they don't have water, they don't have library. They will complain to you all these things. But at the end of the day, they will tell you, when you ask them, what do you want immediately? They will tell you, okay, what we need now is toilets. I will not decide for them. They have to decide. You see, the mistake previously happened was the fact that when you go around to a community, you look, oh, this place, they don't have toilets. And then you choose, probably their immediate need is water. Then you go and put a toilet there without even engaging them. The next time you come, the toilet will be in a bush. It will be eclipsed by grass, bush. Why? Because they want water. So they will not take care of the toilet for you. But if it is their choice that immediately want a toilet, they will be the caretakers of that toilet. You come and see it intact. So it is not like you just going around, looking around per yourself, then you decide I have to give this with the toilet. There's no toilet. Because you've seen people haven't gone free range, and therefore you must give them toilets. Namely, they need water first. After water, then they can tell you, okay, now we need toilets. Then you give them proper toilets. This is what you do. You engage them. Otherwise, we have a local proverb. If you go to put their toilet, whilst it is not toilet which is their priority, in my local, where I'm coming from, There's an old adage that will tell you that a goat owned by two people will always sleep outside. Who will drive it to the house? That is what happens.
Yeah, so
that is how most projects have gone waste.
Yeah, so I'm asking a question because we have yourself, you have gone round, you've also had staff go round to about 5 regions you mentioned, and then we are going to have the work that is going to be done in terms of data gathering. Is this not multiplicity of work?
What duplicity? There's no duplicity here. First of all, I have told you I've gone round. Going around the whole country doesn't mean that I've gone to every village. You understand?
So you will visit every village for the,
will
be visited by the consultants.
Yes. He has to be able to tell you that in Eastern region, there are 300 Zongos. In Northern region, there are 20 Zongos. Ashanti region, there are 50 Zongos. This is what we want to have. Because if you are able to get it, then you can plan well for any budget. Because if Ministry of Finance, you are going there to defend, even though you have just something small for the whole country, you should be able to defend or put before Ministry of Finance that, look, the assignment that you've given me, I'm supposed to superintend over, let's say, 1,000 Zongos. But the money you're giving me, every Zongo is expecting something. But the money you're giving me will not be enough. However, let me see what you're giving me. Then it means the money you're giving me will be for only 10 Zongos. But the 10 Zongos, probably 10 will be for bridges. 10 will be for water. Okay. 10 will be for boreholes or small integrated water systems. 10 will be for schools. 10 will be for libraries. So you spread it. Okay. But it will not be enough to cover the 1,000 communities. But at least if you have a document, that becomes a reference point for you that I have 1,000 communities. Sometimes it's not government alone that will come to your aid. So instead of engaging your 10 communities, if you have corporate entities, sometimes based on what you are doing, you have some corporate entities that will come that, through our corporate social responsibility, we are prepared to partner with you. Right. So we want you to give us, we want to do or invest our monies in probably social development. So what are your social development? So you tell them. Then they will engage those places. But it will be some kind of partnership. This is what you do.
So when do we see the Zongo Development Fund fully operational?
I'm sure. Fully operational, I can tell you that within the next week or two, the board will be in place.
The next 2 weeks?
Yeah,
okay.
They will definitely meet. And when they meet, that is where these issues will be coming up. Because at that time, the secretariat will have been in place to start work. And they will then be guiding them as to what to do and where to invest. Because government has already made its indication of investing 100 million as seed money for the Zongo Development Fund.
In another 2 weeks, the secretariat will be working.
The secretariat will start working.
You mentioned support staff are needed.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what does the fund need for us to call it an office that is working?
Well, definitely you need an office for them. You should have the core working staff in place. And definitely, like I was telling you, most of these things, we need to give them more information as to the kind of things they need to do. For example, it's like a relationship between Ministry of Education and Get Fund, because they already have a study being done and they know the number of areas that don't have schools. They need infrastructure. So they say, look, we want you to build this number of schools this year. And so we submit the list to them and say, I want you to engage contractors to do this. The fund is already there. So they need to report to the ministry to say that, fine, ministry, you've given us this. You said we should do A, B, C, D. This is the budget. This is the procurement processes we have gone through. They can't just sit down and say we are awarding a contract. They have to go through procurement process, through procurement authority, with my approval, and then things will begin to go. And so I'm happy that the board is in place. the chief executives have been appointed. We are going to give them the supporting staff and other engagements they'll be doing. They will need approval from my office. And from there, I believe Zongo will start working. A lot of entities have been calling on me, meetings, to see how they can also help. And so I'm sure we'll do our best.
So in 2 weeks, we are going to see a fully functional Zongo Development Authority.
I'm arranging an office for them. I've engaged AESL, they have office space for me to start with. Because you don't want to waste time and see until you get fully furnished private place before you put them there. I have already arranged accommodation for them. And from there we start.
Right. So we are going to look a bit into your message that you have and a number of other issues. But this week we have looked at Zongo communities as JoyNews agenda. We have gone around and we have spoken to some people. The message that we hear when we go out is that promises were made, we were told things, it's been over a year.
You see, that is why you've taken me back. Let me tell you, first of all, when the ministry was established, I made it very clear during vetting that money that people had $50 million as seed money, people started ringing on air, thinking that it was like a supermarket where people will queue and you come and share money. No, that is not it. The essence of the fund is to ensure that we're talking about infrastructure and sanitation enhancement. Check. When you go to Nima, I think a month ago, I carried out a cleanup exercise. In fact, for the first 2 weeks after the exercise, that place was very, very neat. But today, if you go there, it's like a kind of a recycling. A vicious cycle has happened. The same thing has come back. But I don't blame them because there are certain things we need to put in place. But this is the beginning because my ministry is not standing on its own. We have Ministry of Local Government, we have Environment, we have Ministry of Sanitation, we have Ministry of Works and Housing, Ministry of Interior. All these ministries have to come together to collaborate so that we will have effective presence in those communities.
Right.
So most of them, for example, let's say Medina or Chebi or Bolga is having a park being done. That money, even if I decide to go and share to individuals, it will not be enough as far as the Zongos are concerned. But if you have such facility provided, it means that will be a convergence point for most of the youth who are interested in sports. Not only for sports, but even Christians living within Zongo, if they have a convention, they can carry it there. Muslims, you watch, as we're going to pray on Friday, most of the prayers will be held there. So it tells you that this is a multi-purpose facility. So, and almost all the parks that we are carrying out, we give them floor lights, which means you can have the facility being operated 24/7. If you go to work and you don't have time to go there in the afternoon, in the night, 10 o'clock, you can go and play basketball, you can go and play football. So at least if they manage it well, it can also generate funds, some revenue for them. It will employ people to manage, and then they will pay the people. They also have money to maintain the facility, and so on.
Who will be doing the management?
First of all, for the management, you have the Ministry of Inner City, you have the local government, that is the assembly present there. You have the elders in that area, maybe the chiefs and the youth, they will have representatives on it. So they come to form a whole management board. We don't want a situation where we go and put up that facility. It's meant for the community, but we don't want to have so much control.
So this board or this committee will be taking care of the day-to-day affairs.
The day-to-day affairs of the place.
So I would like a specific response to the concerns that I have put to you that we gathered from the people. What specifically would you tell them if someone were to meet you today and were to ask you that?
First of all, let them understand that Rome was not built in a day. Patience is what matters. Because first of all, the fact that the ministry has been created, the following day the ministry doesn't start working. I gave you a small synopsis about how the ministry was established. In the whole of 2017, we're going around, working. You've come to this ministry. If I take you around, it is not that we are even getting good logistics chairs and other things for officers. We don't have office accommodation. Officers here, if you ask them, if I take you to one of the offices, you have about 10 to 15 people in one office. And the point is that we want to do a good job. I am not the type that will be used as a political instrument to deceive my own people. We know the sacrifices that our great-grandfathers did for this country. But somebody out of politics will just say that, oh, since the ministry was established, you haven't done anything. But I can attest to the fact that there are people, go to Kumasi, 12 good years. There's an area, Sawasi, we call it Palele. It takes its water, when it drizzles in Kumasi, the whole of Ababu gets flooded. The whole of Ababu, tell anybody, I throw the challenge. But when I came, I went there because Ababu, Asawasi is an inner city and at the same time a Zongo community. I went there, the whole place has been dredged by this ministry. We desilted it. For 7 days, 1 week, it was raining in Kumasi. Nobody in Abu experienced flooding. 12 good years. Go and check the records from Works and Housing. I was one time Minister for Works and Housing in this country. And I'm telling you on record, I have gone to do the job that for 12 years has not been done. A Zongo ministry which is yet finding its feet. So I tell you, that whatever I'm doing, I know about Zongo more than anybody will tell me.
Some would say that when you mention repeatedly that you're finding your feet as a ministry, it lends credence to the critique that was raised at the beginning of this administration, that we should rather give the job to the institutions that exist, so that when we are establishing a new ministry, we would spend time putting it on its feet before the work begins.
Thank you so much. I would have wished, because I remember before I was even appointed, I was called by CTFM. They called me. I was on their studio. They asked me about this issue. And I told them that it would have been good for local government to take charge because it's local governments. But you see, today in modern world, countries appoint people based on target specific. It's not, you can have local government. For me, I wouldn't mind. It's not about being a minister. But the most important thing is the work being done. If you go to that ministry or you go to other ministries, they have departments, yet the departments are not functioning. So how come? They will tell you that there's no money. They'll give a whole ministry a budget, yet that particular department is functionless. So for me, I give credit to the president for identifying a problem and say, look, I want a solution to that. Because Zongos have been in existence centuries ago. Since 14th or 12th century, Zongo in Ghana have been in existence. Zongos have suffered for Ghana's independence. 1873,
Right.
the first 600 people to be drafted into the military were Zongo people. The national chief imam, his grandfather, not his father, his tomb is like Sampa. Damborno was one of the first soldiers in this country. The First World War, the Second World War, go to Kumasi, we have a tomb. 90% of the names are Zongo people. But let's come to present day, modern Ghana. Check all the Zongos and then see and ask yourself what benefit has come to the Zongos. We have had development programs, Urban 1, Urban 2, Urban 3, Urban 4, Urban 5. Tell me what effect has it had on Zongos?
So you believe that it hasn't had that direct, specific effect on the Zongos? Okay.
Okay, but politicians have always used Zongos as instruments of production. We politicians, when it's time for a campaign and other things, we go to the Zongo people, use them as instruments of production. After that, they are only catalysts. They either promote or retrogress a process.
Right,
they are thrown away until another cycle comes.
Right, so you mentioned that you have specific targets that you are supposed to attain. Yeah. Can you share some of these targets with us, and how would you grade yourself so far? If you were going to mark yourself out of 100, for instance.
Well, I wouldn't grade myself. It is somebody, the one who constructs a road does not know where the road is bent.
But given your knowledge of the challenges that you have.
If you follow my activities, you should judge me. I don't have to judge myself. All that I know is that I've opened the eyes of the people, I'm conscientizing the people, and telling them what I have to do for them.
I'm asking this because, like we are saying, like I was saying,
I don't grade myself.
Yeah, you see, I'm asking this question because, like we are saying, we've been across the country. We know the feedback we've gotten. I've given you some of it now. But you have a unique position. You're in a unique position to know what the challenges are and to know what has been done. So considering what challenges you have faced, what would you say?
Okay, let me give you one example. Recently, about some 4 weeks back, there was some conflict in Ahia. It was Zongos and their camps. It was a serious matter, security issue, where people tried to politicize it. Others were saying it was MPP, NDC, accounts against Zongos, Christians against Muslims. All these things I've mentioned was not true. It was gangsters from this side, from the Akan community, and gangsters from the Zongo community. People couldn't solve it. I moved out of Accra and went there, met both sides, and solved it. But I'm not the type who will go and solve a problem and want the whole world to know. That one is a credit to the Zongo people, because at the end of the day, they have been staying there for many, many years. But if they had heard the propaganda that was being done, because people were even moving from Abu Abu and Tafu to go and help their neighbors to go and fight. But when I got there, the problem was solved.
Right.
It's not part of the responsibility.
We are nearly out of time, but again, given your position, what would you say you have done? If you're going to grade yourself, what would you say you've done?
All that I know is that I'm not grading myself, but I've lifted the intentions of the party, the government, and the president up, because I have conscientized the people and let them know what is going on. So definitely, this ministry is highly on top of its job.
Right. Let's have your message to your Muslim brothers and sisters as Eid is celebrated.
Well, first of all, some of us are grieving because the month is coming to an end. Any genuine Muslim having to fast for 29 or 30 days, month of Ramadan, is a special and a unique month. It's a special and a unique month. And it's a month that we believe Islam was fully completed and handed over to mankind. It's a month when the Quran was fully completed and handed over to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is a month that we believe is a month of peace. And it's a month when mankind comes close to God, because this is a month where you see it to be very holy, a month where you engage yourself very close to God. All the things that you used to do in the past, you leave them just to concentrate, to pray. It's one of the pillars of Islam. Out of the 5 pillars, we see this to be very, very holy. And therefore, having pruned is hypothetically is a month where you see a tree in the dry season prunes down all its leaves and regenerates a new one. So it's a month that we believe when you repent, submit yourself, all your sins are washed away from you. And we are coming up as newborn babies. And it's a month where we also submit ourselves by praying for the country, for peace, for development, for the president, for his vice, members of parliament, ministers, everybody in this country. And It is only Ghana, let me commend Ghana, because it is only Ghana where Muslims are fasting, you have fellow worshippers like Christians, most of them also fasting with us. When we are breaking fast, we break fast with them. And it is only in Ghana when Christians are celebrating Christmas, you have Muslims joining them. So we have a unique and a special country. And so whenever we are doing this, it is something that is too special and dear to our hearts. I also want to take the opportunity to use this platform to wish my fellow Muslims Barakat Sallah, Eid al-Fitr, and wish them Ramadan Kareem. And I will also want to entreat them, especially I want to also greet His Eminence, the National Chief Imam Nuh Sharwatu, the leadership of the Shiites, the leadership of the Ahmadis, the leadership of the Sunnis, Al Sunnah wal Jama'ah. I wish them well, I wish them a happy celebration. But this special message also goes to the youth, because during the end of Ramadan, it is the time when people express their joy to a certain level that they ride motorbikes carelessly and finally end up involving themselves in accidents. I want to tell them that a soul lost is a generation lost. We need everybody during the celebration to come out in full peace, not in pieces. I wish them well. Barakah Sallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Barakah Sallah to you as well. I'll be praying with you in church.
So no problem.
Yes, this is...
I go to your churches.
Really?
And I quote the Bible. Today, when I was mentioning about fasting, you check 1 Corinthians chapter 5, chapter 7, verse 5. It's there. Let's come together as one, so that we don't split for the Satan to go through. First, we are able to defeat the enemy.
The only thing is that I won't share in your sadness when we are ending the fasting, because I'll be happy. I can eat. Alhaji Boniface Siddiq is the Minister for Zongos and Inner City Developments. This is the Pulse, the holiday edition of the Pulse. Daniel Dazi.